Thank you for including SEAMEO SPAFA to be in this session. I like to begin my talk on a relation of culture to education, because many people may not always see the picture that culture does belong to education. When you're speaking of lifelong learning and informal education, there are the two main branches of education that involve culture. Culture has many times stimulated interest and curiosity among learners that give them sense of direction in choice of subject and profession. Therefore, culture is one of the key elements in educational world. I like to quote from Professor Jyoti Hosagraha, the Director of Creativity Division of UNESCO, who said that culture is who we are and what shapes our identity. Placing culture at the heart of development policies is the only way to ensure a human-centered, inclusive, and equitable development, unquote. Therefore, culture is recognized and included in the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations, in those that focus on education, sustainable cities, the environment, economic growth, peaceful and inclusive societies, gender equality, for example. From ancient cultural heritage to modern creative industries, culture is both an enabler and a driver of the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. The 7 cultural priorities areas in the newly approved 10-year strategic plan from 2021 to 2030 of SEAMEO are the proposal created by the only 2 centers, regional centers that deal with culture, that who are SEAMEO Chat and SEAMEO SPAFA. We created these 7 key areas of development plans for cultural education so people of Southeast Asia could better appreciate the evolution of culture. I'm saying this on behalf of the SEAMEO SPAFA as a center director. With the inclusion of culture in both organizations, United Nations and SEAMEO, one can see that modern approach for cultural focus has changed from globalization to localization, from the previous emphasis on seeking wealth through industrialization to today's focus on sustainable quality of life issues instead. But before the paradigm shift was noted, the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej the Great of Thailand had already sowed the seeds of awareness for sustainable goals to be based on self-reliance, reasonableness, and self-immunity, and the implantation of morality and knowledge to the Thai people. His philosophy of sufficiency economy highlights a balanced way of living to reach sustainable goals. Looking at SDGs, the 7 cultural priority areas of SEAMEO, and the philosophy on sufficiency economy, one can see similarities and common goals in enhancing the quality of life. Our center, SEAMEO SPAFA, based our goals upon the 7 priorities and SDGs. We expect our activities to inspire creativity, professionalism, and excellence in conducting archaeology, fine arts, and cultural heritage values that enhance its physical and cultural preservation. Promote ethical integrity, mutual respect, and inclusivity. We also seek a balance between preserving our heritage. At the same time, we embrace change. And finally, we pledge to our commitment to practitioners, professionals, and the communities they serve. However, along our journey of our practice, we realize that climate change is an issue that cannot be left out from our scheme, especially when we emphasize human resiliency in dealing with many of the disastrous environmental situations happening around the globe. In the following slides, you can see how we aligned our 7 cultural priority areas to the SDGs. Although our plan for the next 10 years is to urge Southeast Asian people to come back to their roots, to learn from the natural way of life, and apply its resources in reaching many sustainable development goals. The existence of regional diversity in its people and cultural traditions can also bring strength to their local and region by sharing and partnering with one another. Nevertheless, we will make sure that they will find a good balance between globalization and localization in reaching to sustainable development. While globalization is an important means to prepare readiness for the advancement in technological fields, however, globalization's effect can overshadow the importance of cultural identities in the process. Therefore, we also prepare readiness for localization for them at the same time, because it is the way to make one's culture stand out from the crowd and be visible. As it turns out, the conceptual strategy on planning our activities are well interconnected with the philosophy of sufficiency economy. Now I'd like to show some examples of SPAVA educational resilient programs during the outbreak of the pandemic. First is the creation of a new online program. When we first exposed into the situation of the COVID-19, SEAMEO SPAVA responded quickly by forming an online SPAVA SESH. It is a program in which practitioners and professionals in the archaeology and fine arts can follow the movement of the work in their fields during this period in which actual contact was becoming ever more prohibited. SPAVA SESH offers series of online activities on Zoom and on SPAVA's Facebook page. These are led by resource persons and include moderated audience participation. To date, we have already organized 10 sessions of SESH on various topics in archaeology and fine arts, as you can see on our banners here. Another program, which is our core mission activities, are the in-field training program. We have 2 training programs on the disaster risk management for cultural heritage in Southeast Asia and archaeological bones conservation that have to be postponed because of the pandemic until we finally decided to change these 2 programs to an online format. However, in doing these courses online, we have to really adjust our way of doing totally different than the one that we do before on physical training. We have to adjust on our teaching methods, on technology, and how to integrate the cooperation with our partners and resource persons team. And lastly, the time consuming, because these online format, we need to extend the length of each course from 2 weeks to 2 or 4 months. I like to end my talk as a cultural person that although these might be called a new normal, but through our lives, we have been facing many times in different periods, the new normal of each period, but we survive. So through the study of humanity's way of life from cultural heritage, one can learn of changes in society, reasons for the changes, and learn from previous sequences of adjustment of lifestyles. By using this knowledge as a tool, humanity is better prepared for the creation and innovation of new and additional survival techniques and finding sustainability in each period. And as the SDGs and sufficiency economy reforms are implemented, so will society once again adapt and achieve a balance and endure. Thank you very much.